Hello, Lawrence. Hello, Jonathan. Hello to all of our 145 and counting participants on Zoom. I don't know how many are on Facebook. I heard from one of our supporters today that he's not using Facebook anymore. I understand a lot of people that's happening these days. Welcome everybody from all over to all of us here here in Israel. I'm in Tel Aviv. Lawrence is in Modi'in. Jonathan is, I'm not sure, and we're having, we'll be with Alen. Jonathan Meyrav, our Director of Tourism, will be with us, birding tourism here at the Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel. Alen Kacal from the Jerusalem Bird Observatory, and Noam Weiss from Eilat, the Eilat Birding Research Center. We have a really exciting evening ahead. The show is almost over. Our show is just beginning, but the show in the skies is almost over. The spring migration season has been a huge success, really spectacular up in the avian skyway. Jonathan will be giving us an overview of that. Standing in for his boss, Dan Alen, who couldn't be with us tonight. Dan is the director of Birdlife Israel, of the Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel.
Like Dan is around.
Dan is around. Oh, Dan is on. Dan is on. We're here in a larger group. All the panelists here. We're excited to get going in another couple of minutes. I see we're still climbing up to 170 participants on Zoom. Really so happy you could all join us from all over. We're excited tonight to sum up the spring migration. It's not entirely over, as I understand. It lingers, but the peak is way past. And there's lots to talk about, also about SPNI and the tough time we've been through as an organization. Of course, you know, Israel is slowly coming out of lockdown. Today, there might have been a reversal in that. We don't really know what's going on. Some of the schools are still closed or reclosed, but overall, we have our heads and eyes and vision towards the future here at SPNI. We're really happy to share that vision with you and all of our great work, especially in the birding field. Really one of our leading things we do in nature conservation in Israel. Bird migration is so crucial to biodiversity here in Israel and in Europe and in Africa. Dan is driving home from, I think, some important personal business.
Yeah, we're not encouraging driving and zooming at the same time.
We don't encourage driving and zooming, not at all, not at all. Anyway, I think we're, you know, about time to get moving here on the spring migration season. So please, Jonathan Meyrav, take it over.
Thank you, Jay. Hi, everyone. It's a great pleasure to see all of you with us here. Like Jay mentioned, this evening is all about closing up our spring migration season. Spring is normally our busiest season of the year, as is for the birds. And of course, this year it was a little bit different, just like it was different for all of us worldwide. So this evening, we're going to talk a little bit about our activities in general, how we survived or are surviving this season. And we're going to hear directly from the director of the Eilat Birdwatching Center, Noam Weiss, about their season down south in Eilat, and from Alen Kacal, co-director of the Nili and David Jerusalem Bird Observatory, to let us hear about how they handled the spring season under lockdown in Jerusalem. So I'll just share my screen with you guys and say a few words about our season. All right, so like I mentioned, spring 2020 is a season that we will all remember. Not for the specific birds or amazing bird activity, but it was the season that the world came to a standstill because of a tiny microscopic bug. Of course, the COVID-19 issue affected everyone worldwide, It's something that will come down in history. And sadly, it took a serious toll on the work of SPNI as an organization, and specifically for us at Birdlife Israel, the birding department of SPNI. Normally what we do are these three branches, if you may. First, field work. We've got the best field birders in Israel working within the department and with us. And we work around the year doing monitoring projects, surveys, and in the past year, we've started a huge project, a full Israel breeding bird atlas. This field work is done for scientific research reasons, of course, collecting data, but more important is the fact that the data that we do collect is used with decision makers, city planners, nature reserves, things like that on a slightly higher level. We are the ones that supply the most efficient and up-to-date data from the field that these decision makers can work with. The second branch we do involves outreach, public outreach, be it public campaigns or just general awareness campaigns to protecting the birds and the nature of Israel. We are heavily rooted in education programs, working with hundreds of schools around the country, not just schools of all ages, from very young children in kindergartens through all the way up to teenagers, and then we continue into the army, doing various education projects and various things that we do with local communities. SPNI has communities in all the big cities in Israel, and regardless of our birdwatching centers, SPNI is deeply embedded in working with the communities. The community is our strength. And the last but not least is our birding ecotourism branch. Birding ecotourism is on the rise worldwide, and it is in Israel as well. The money that we generate from birding ecotourism, from birding tours in Israel and various projects such as the Eilat Bird Festival, the Migration Experience tours in Northern Israel, and Champions of the Flyway, various other projects that we do bring in a very significant part of BirdLife Israel's budget. And sadly, this year we were not able, of course, to do any of this tourism, which took a serious toll from us. I'll get back to this in a second. So starting in February, we started to realize that there isn't going to be any birding tourism to Israel this year. We were quite optimistic. We didn't really know when things began just how severe and how this issue will affect the whole world. I think it's the first time in recent history that the world literally shut down. No air travel, countries shutting down their skies. Of course, this meant that we lost many birding tour groups that come into Israel from all over the world. And we also lost the educational activities that we do with various schools and educational programs. This affected us at an income of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, this is not money that we lost, but this is projected money that we rely on for our yearly budgets. And we took a significant hit there. When we don't have this fuel coming from our tourism activities, it's very difficult to do the other things that we did. On the upside, during the second half of March and most of April, we spent hundreds of survey days in the field. Like I said, the breeding bird atlas is a focal point that we dealt with, and we basically gridded the whole country. And we continued working throughout the quarantine. Our birders had, they were essential workers, if you may. We had passes to travel around the country. And we did, because some of these surveys need to be done during the migration season and or during the breeding season. So we worked very hard in the field coming up with amazing data. And this is something that we could not have done if we would have continued on with our regular routine. So not everything is a downside. And most of this field work was done by in-house surveyors, meaning employees of SPNI. SPNI sent quite a few people on leave and on various paid vacations. And the people that continued working, such as myself and my colleagues, took a pay cut of 20% in order to help with the effort. And we could not employ any exterior workers to do our field work. And this meant that all of us worked very, very hard in the field throughout the whole spring until last week. Another thing that we found very, very helpful is what we're doing right now, is that we moved a lot of our activities, outreach and educational activities online. We held some very, very successful webinars, some of which you have attended. And this became, just like for many other things all over the world, Zoom and various video conference options have become the go-to tool when it comes to education and outreach. So we learned a lot through the process, and we're actually going to continue using this tool even when things go back to normal. But it was a very, very cool thing for us to learn, that we can, keep in touch and do very interesting things to larger crowds online. Another thing that we did online is our Israel Raptor Nest Cam. The Raptor Nest Cam project, already in its 5th year, basically very high quality video cameras broadcasting live 24/7 from raptor nests in various places in the country. We had a beautiful camera in a short-toed eagle nest, a griffin vulture and Egyptian vulture nest in the desert, and long-legged buzzard, a very faithful pair that we have been following for 5 years now. We put a lot of emphasis on promoting the Nest Cam project, and it got much higher exposure than ever before, which resulted in donations and things that we needed, and exposing the beauty of the nature in Israel to hundreds of thousands of people worldwide throughout this season. When we're looking ahead, like I mentioned, SPNI as an organization took a serious hit. It's a hit that's going to cost us millions. SPNI is heavily reliant on the educational programs, hiking programs, holiday camps, the Passover holidays, and the various holidays, Independence Day, Shavuot. These are days which are our peak season for hiking and exploring and nature outdoors activities in the country. And SPNI, we were not able to do any of this throughout the whole season. And like I said, this thing is costing the organization millions of dollars. It's going to take a while for us to bounce back. We are looking forward to schools returning. It won't happen this school year, but we have high hopes for September 2020 onwards. We know that many of our schools will return, want to go out there, be out in the field, and we're looking forward to giving them the best services possible. And our international birding tours start in November 2020. We really hope, fingers crossed, that everything will be back to normal sooner than later, and we will be able to lead tour groups already in 2020 and looking ahead to 2021. And I'll end on this note that your support, as mentioned, is needed now more than ever. SPNI is a nonprofit. We heavily rely on support from outside, donations. I mean, we keep working and we keep doing the best that we can to protect Israel's birds, Israel's fragile habitats. And this is how you can help. Please make sure to sign up to our newsletters. We have a specific bird watching and birding related newsletter, and also a general nature in Israel newsletter. And if you can place a donation, any amount will help. And thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the evening. I'm going to hand it down to our man down in the south, to Noam Weiss, that will give us a little bit of warm weather and warm energy from Eilat.
Hi, Noam is waiting. I'm just gonna pop in here for a quick minute. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Great overview. I learned a lot. I just want to say what I've neglected to say enough on this webinar, that we also rely here in Israel on our friends around the world, particularly in the States and in Canada, our New York-based board of American Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel, Nature Israel, and especially in Toronto, our Toronto-based Canadian board of the CSPNI, Canadian Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel. These folks, there's a couple of hardworking staff people and very dedicated board members in both of these places and around North America who are working to help us not just raise funds, but help us when we come to the States. So we want to do that more when we can, if and when we can start doing that. Our birders and naturalists and other people, experts, will be around, and they will be reaching out, our folks in New York and in Toronto, to, if you have synagogue groups or other venues that you want to meet us when we can start traveling again. Those are the people that will be in touch and you can be in touch with. So thanks very much. And now all the way down to Eilat. Thank you, Jonathan, and welcome, Noam.
Thank you, Jen. Jonathan, thank you for the opportunity. I just share my screen here. And that's an amazing attendance. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm gonna present what we do in Eilat and what spring was like this year. And I must say, many of you probably heard about bird migration in Eilat, that it's awesome. There are lots of birds in lots of places. I just want to tell you, it doesn't come easy. It comes with lots of work. Maybe in the past, nature was great and could sustain itself. The moment the birds are coming to man-made habitats, to places that are disturbed, it takes a lot of work or a struggle to continue nature conservation for migratory birds. And this year, also a struggle for our own survival. So let me tell you a few things about who we are. The International Birding and Research Center of Eilat is all about connecting birds and people. We call it community-based nature conservation. And this is just showing people how amazing birds are truly are, how they migrate between continents, even if they are really small, with very little amount of food. And we try to make people appreciate birds and love them. Love creates conservation. Conservation comes from feelings. This is what we believe in, and this is what we try to produce when we take people birding around or hearing about bird migration. Eilat is an amazing place because its geographical features. It is the only land bridge connecting 3 continents, Europe, Asia, and Africa. So birds are pushed towards us, but it is much more than that. In spring, that is still on. Imagine a bird flying from Ethiopia across the Sahara Desert, flying 3,000 kilometers without any food on the way. And then when they reach Eilat, it's the gate. It's the gate into Asia and Africa and Europe, the gate into their breeding grounds. This is where migration gets easier. This is the first stopover site, the first food source after 3,000 kilometers of desert, 7 days of flight or 4 days of days and nights of non-stop flight, as small birds as a blue throat that only weighs 10 grams. In the past, we didn't need to do anything. The salt marsh of Eilat, the black area you see is the Red Sea, but the triangle on the right is the salt marsh of Eilat. That was the fueling station. It was an amazing habitat, not dependent on rain because of salty soil, but let's see what we did. We completely demolished it and nothing is left. We built on it the city of Eilat without knowing what we're doing. And this is why we've built the bird sanctuary. The bird sanctuary is an alternative feeder. It's all natural habitats, different ones, from freshwater lake, saline water lake, salt ponds, salt marsh, savanna, desert thicket, every possible habitat you can think of. And each tree is waiting for a specific bird. The chiefchaff in the end of February needs the nectar of the tamarisk, etc. So this is a lot of effort and love is put into this conservation for these birds. And unfortunately, we have to do it ourselves now. We do a lot of research. We have to learn how to help birds migrate. So we do migratory raptor service. We count them. We check the physical condition of birds in the ringing station. We are hosting research to do their own research, and we are monitoring all kinds of things. I'll talk about a bit later in the desert, at sea, in the stopover sites, just everywhere. Conservation is our mission. This is why we exist. We make sure that everything is safe for the birds and the stopover sites are good. How do we do it? So maintaining a flyway is just like taking care of a highway for cars. You need clear and safe passage, which means the skies must be clear of wind farms in dangerous places, power lines, cable-held pylons. And also we have to take off the stopover sites that serve as restaurants and motels. They have to be rich with food, lots of shelter, even if they are a field, a garden of someone, or even a sewage pond. So what we are doing, we made a master plan for stopover sites. We have mapped by surveying all the important stopover sites in Southern Arava and Eilat area, if they are natural or not natural. And we have, each one of them is getting its own file with hazards, opportunities, and potential partners, how to make it safer and better for the migratory birds. Places that are at risk, we immediately take care of it, and places that can be approved, we are not waiting for anything to happen, but take action immediately. Let's take an example. This is a negative example. Somebody wants to build a campsite on the shores of flamingo pools. It's a really bad idea. So we had to fight it. How do we, well, who do we fight for? For the flamingo. It's beautiful, but extremely sensitive. And they like to fly around at night, which is bad if you have camping sites around you. But mainly, it's a stopover site for a huge diversity of birds, mainly shorebirds and passerines, waders, all kinds of birds that use this amazing man-made it's a salt factory, a habitat that is at risk now. So how do we do it? This is our way. We engage community. We have bird-loving community, big one in Eilat. I think everyone in Eilat has something to do. Birds had become an identity component of the people of Eilat. We did a project before of choosing the birds of Eilat. Everyone were engaged, and we invite people. They come, we play, we have fun, we make a point, and this plan is probably off the table. The mayor called and said, no way there's going to be a camping site there. The planners arrived. Let's see for the future, but it looks good. We also take our conservation across borders, but I'm not going to talk about it. I think we have Lawrence webinar about that in the next later in the months. But we also do cross-border activity with Jordan, Palestine, and other partners from the Arab and Muslim world. A lot of our effort is put into education. Education at the bird sanctuary. All schools, all the community comes to Eilat. It comes to the bird sanctuary of Eilat all the time. Pupils have to come 2 times in the primary school, and then they come for research in the high school. And we also go into classes and teach there our educational program. So everybody in Eilat knows about how important Eilat is for bird migration, how great bird migration is to Eilat. It's a lot of resource. And of course, we take volunteers, mainly local from our community that are cutting edge. These are the people who are actually doing the job, not me, and also foreign professional volunteers. So what kind of spring was this spring for the birds? Well, I must say it was an amazing spring, and it was pity seeing it almost alone. March and April were amazing for passerine migration. We had high numbers at the in the banding station and in the field. Huge numbers of lesser white-throats, black caps, and also wood cobblers. and the black and white flycatchers. Raptor migration was awesome. Hundreds of thousands of buzzards just rocked our skies, and shorebirds did very, very well too around the end of migration. But what was really special this year was the desert. Following winter rains, we got the larks breeding in big numbers. Thick-billed larks, hundreds of pairs in many, many places. Temminck's larks, more isolated, but where it's around, there are tens of pairs together. The hoopoe lark, that if you asked us 15 years ago, how many pairs breed in Israel, we would say maybe 10. We had at least 100 birds documented this year. They are just everywhere doing great. And our guest star of the year is the Arabian lark, Arabian dance lark, that last time that was breeding was maybe 25 years ago. And we have a few tens of pairs this year. So the desert was amazing, really amazing. And also the sandgrouse showed well. We are doing sandgrouse counts every month. The spotted sandgrouse peak of, it's sharply declining up in northern Negev, but in the southern Negev, it's blooming, it's really doing well. So spotted sandgrouse, crowned sandgrouse, and black-bellied and pintail that have not been seen in our region for, I don't know, tens of years, are now becoming stabilizing here and are seen almost every time we do a survey. So the desert is doing well because of the rain, but also because of conservation. We put a lot of effort in maintaining these habitats that are not, most of them, these open flats, are not in nature reserves. So we have to do some other action to conserve them. Ecotourism, that is spring is our prime time for ecotourism. We see mainly internal tourists from Israel coming to hear about birds. The bird sanctuary sees 75,000 people per year, mainly in spring. And these are professional birders that came to see a release of the African rail, first for Israel. But this is how it looked this spring. Our streets were empty. Community work, this is really important for us. We do 5 communal work happenings, events, sometimes thousands of people. Our best one was 4,000 people in 2 days. We bring theater, we make shows about birds. Everything is about bird conservation. We show ringing, we show birds with telescopes, we play. But unfortunately, this is how it looked like this year. The bird sanctuary was closed, and it was a bad feeling. Our volunteers, usually we are flooded with volunteers. They all left, but Sam from the UK, maybe he's watching, I hope so. He's the only one that remained, but we had to let them all go eventually. So we were left doing all the job on our own, which was going out of the office into the fieldwork was pretty awesome too for me. But that was just my personal thing. It was not good for the birds. So nature conservation projects that are still running. We are working on the sewage plant to be safer and richer site for the migratory and local birds. We have a campaign against camping site on the shores of the flamingo pools. You heard about it already. Safeguarding urban stopover sites in the city of Eilat, and fields and orchards as stopover sites with farmers, and a lot more. I'll just briefly show you our environmental management plan for Eilat sewage work. We got some money from a fund of Ministry of Protection of Environment and SPNI, invested quite a lot of money in that. It's a great stopover site that sees rare breeding raptors like the Laneren, Barbary falcon, lots of waterfowl, almost extinct eagles that come into winter there. And it's the only place where Liechtenstein sandgrouse come to drink in the country. How do we do it? Conservation and improvements for biodiversity. We change the place a little. We are taking care of all the hazards in the site, and we we plan in this stage, visitor infrastructure that respects the needs of the wildlife. This project is actually done by the sewage treatment management themselves. We are only advisors here, but we managed to push them into submitting that, and we are advising them how to do it, and it's a beautiful project. Our site, which is merely a switch pond, is becoming an extremely bird-friendly place, and the initiative comes from the community. We already see a lot of hazards there, like electrocutions, noise and light pollution, fences, disturbance from bird watchers that come to see the sand grouse, fish poisoning and death, and neighbors, they are terrible. We have a cow shed next door. And we also see a lot of opportunities, empty spaces that can be made into more of stopover sites. Water availability is great there. It can build islands, etc. We also continue with our monitoring and research. Some even enlarged. Everything that we need for nature conservation, we continued. Everything that brings money, which is a lot, we continue. Bird banding, checking the physical condition of migrants. We do it for over 20 years now in a row. So we managed to finance it by a Swedish hospital that we collect ticks for. They take the ticks, check the RNA inside them for health care. And we do it here. It's migratory ticks that fly on top of migratory birds. Extremely interesting and important research. And this is actually financing our banding activity. Raptor breeding survey continued, sand grouse counts, stopover sites monitoring, Arabian warbler, which is an endangered bird, also continues. I want to show you one of our research, which we do in the fields. You know, birds love fields, but these fields are not made for birds, but the food is plenty there. There are lots of caterpillars, insects, whatever, and the birds love it. But the farmer thinks they are pests. So what we do together with the R&D, with my lovely wife, Jessica, we are conducting a research to try and educate. From my point of view, it's to educate the farmers, invite the birds. And for science sake is these passerines are giving services of pest control into the fields for free. So I just really fast show that in the field is the top left, the birds are insectivores, while around the field, it's a mixture. You can see that the birds that are attracted to the fields are insectivores, and on the bottom right, you can see that who are these insectivores? It's migratory birds. So bird migration brings insectivores, birds that eat this insect, into the fields. This is a great service for the farmers. This is really too much for you, I know, but this says that thrips, which is the worst pest in onions, is extremely correlated to the red-throated pipit that comes to the fields, which means when the thrips is up, the pipit comes to eat it, and it's great. We also do the same in date plantations. We have no results yet, and it's all for the farmers. Okay, we are trying to do it for the sake of the farmers, to get less pesticides, to make healthier food, but mostly to invite the birds into these places that will become safer and more friendly to the birds because the farmers want that, not because we want that. We also continue with professional services. We do professional services for diversity of income. Ecotourism is a great source of income, but if we stick only to that, we might fall. This is why for a lot of time, we are doing we're giving a lot of services. Like the new Eilat International Airport, we help prevent collisions. That has continued. The airport stayed open, luckily. It's a lot of money from them. Municipality of Eilat, we're handling the Indian house crow conflict. It's a bad conflict. It's an invasive bird that eats birds, destroys the nest, but also attacks people. We actually had the opportunity to intensify the work because the streets were empty. We are monitoring for others, an oil spill that happened, ticks for the medical research in Sweden, surveying for the state, the National Nature and Parks Authority, partly continued. Most of things are still on track. And research with external budgets continue, and consulting projects with funds also continue. So most of this work actually continued, and some was also intensified. We also had a great opportunity, having no visitors, to renovate the infrastructure of the bird sanctuary. We renovated both the natural infrastructure, habitats. This is why we built a new lake, planted lots of new trees that are nutritious and to the birds, and bring the food in the right time, and they're all local. But we also build infrastructure for visitors, all new, with the great help of Ministry of Tourism and the Open Space Fund of the state too. And we almost managed, it's the last step, to approve a new plan for the bird sanctuary that will allow us to improve habitats even more and build a small entrance hall in the future. We are really looking for funds to have something amazing. This is just a picture, this is just an example. Some amazing a small building, very, very modest, that will invite people into environmental doing and into the world of migratory birds. We stayed in touch with our community through other means, obviously. We are a community-based nature conservation organization, and without our public, we can just go home and shut our business. So the only way to do it was be in touch with them in every possible available way. And we did this, we shared these videos, some of them an hour long, with each time to a different audience. Could be Eilatis, could be foreigners, could be people from the rest of Israel, could be elderly house in Eilat, or special need kids, or a school class that wanted to hear what's happening in the bird sanctuary. We put a lot of effort in sharing our work during the Corona time. And we thought that we are doing just fine. But then the second wave arrived. We really calculated the loss of income from tourism and projects that were lost. We have cut expenses and sent people for unpaid leave, unfortunately, our secretary. We intensified our professional services and kept the income, and we thought we were really fine. We really calculated everything, and I was happy sitting on the computer on the Excel and said, we are gonna survive it. But then the second wave arrived. The second wave is our partners, our customers that are also in trouble, are cutting their participants, are cutting the services we give. The JNF cut us off the water that was always given to us for free, and the other resources they used to give us. So it is getting difficult. We really, really need your help. The stopover sites are not safe. I wish I could say that nature in Eilat and Arava is so good that it will sustain bird migration without us. But this is not the case. We need to work hard to keep it running, to keep the farmers happy with the birds, to keep the sewage ponds friendly for the birds, the salt factory, the salt ponds free of hazards, the work with people who put power lines to make sure that the raptor migration flyway is not crossing that, working with the Navy at the North Beach. We need to continue our work. And how do we save the world? Protect nature and help NGOs survive. So we really, really need your help this time. I usually don't say that. And thank you for supporting us. Thank you so much. And we have made a short film. Just a second. I'm gonna share our film. I hope you can all see it. And wait, just a second. And here it is. Oh, not working now. Just a second.
I don't know, man. I tell you, not bird in the sky. So I don't know what the people standing in the beach, man.
Yeah, no, we can't see the film.
Can't see the film. I can see that. Is it better now?
No, we're just listening to the very nice techno music.
Okay. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna put a link. Just a second. We're gonna put a link, and you can see this film on your own later. I really recommend that. And thank you. I think I'll pass it now to Alen from the Jerusalem Bird Observatory, which is doing fantastic work. Also community-based nature conservation in the middle of the holy city. So Alen, this is all. The stage is yours now.
Noam, you're staying for questions, right?
Of course, I'm here.
Good, because there are questions already for you, so we'll come back to you.
Thank you, Noam. It's always dangerous to follow Noam. He has so much great stuff to say down in Eilat. First of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who joined us. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I can see that there's people far out on the west coast of the US and the east coast, as well as here in Israel. So wherever you are, I hope you are enjoying it. I love some of the words that Noam used, and I'll come back to some of them. Words like community, love, connection. These are things that are very much part of the Jerusalem Bird Observatory as well, the Nili and David Jerusalem Bird Observatory here in Jerusalem. I know that some of you might be joining us for the first time, and some of you have been with us before. So let me introduce you a little bit to the JBO before we get going. So I'm going to share my screen here and find my. Hang on 1 second. PowerPoint going up here. We go and share screen. So a little introduction to the Jerusalem Bird Observatory. We are a 1.5 acre site located right next to the Knesset, which is the Israeli parliament in downtown Jerusalem. And you can see on this little map, the Knesset is in the background, and in the foreground is this big wide open space, well, not so big, which is the Jerusalem Bird Observatory. And we've been there for the past 26 years, managing the site for migrating birds. And it has become one of the most important stopover sites in Israel for the birds that are passing through from Europe to Africa every year. We are an urban wildlife site, and we are a community-based conservation site. So we rely very much on volunteers, on community involvement, and we have a great community of people of all ages, from all walks of life, who are involved with us and help us do everything on the site, as well as enjoying the birds that come to visit. Thousands of birds spend time at the JBO every year, where they refuel in the spring after their epic journey over the Sahara Desert from Africa, before continuing on into Europe, where they nest. And this gives the JBO, just like Eilat, a unique opportunity to study the migration of birds. We use mainly bird banding or bird research, bird ringing as our main research tool. Putting up nets on site and catching the birds as they come through. We put rings on their legs made of aluminum, which have a number and an address, and we release the birds after taking some measurements. And we're hoping that these birds will end up somewhere else in the world and be seen again. And we will get the data and learn about migration routes, where the birds are going, how long it takes them to get there, where they're coming from. And all this data helps us with conservation. But we're also very much interested in the urban environment. How are these migrating birds using the urban environment in the Jerusalem hills, in the city of Jerusalem? We use the data that we get from this to help city officials and other people who are trying to conserve green space in cities to come up with plans for urban green space conservation and urban biodiversity. Since we're doing this research smack in the middle of the city, we have another unique opportunity, and that is we can teach people about birds, and we can connect people in the city to the nature in their backyards. They don't have to travel up to the Hula Valley in the north or to the desert in the south in order to see birds. We have it right in their backyard.
Full screen.
Go full screen? I'm not full screen?
No.
Huh. Sorry about that.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
Alen, just start the slideshow.
There we go. Yeah, we're full screen now. Sorry about that. Spring migration is our busiest time of year. Migrating birds are on site, local birds are nesting, flowers are everywhere, and visitors of all ages and backgrounds come to the JBO from all over the world. And then there was this spring. What a spring we had here at the JBO. After a rainy and cold winter, we were poised at the beginning of March for a fantastic spring season. There was so much energy in the air. Volunteers were ready for the migration ringing season. You can see some of them here. Our education were prepared for all the school groups that are about to visit in the warming weather, and bird watchers from all over the world had been in contact to tell us that they were on their way. They were coming to see the birds, to participate in the Eilat Bird Festival and Champions of the Flyway, and to visit the JBO. Due to the rain, the site was green. It was full of food for the birds. You can see here mulberries and buckthorn and thistles that were waiting for the birds to feed them as they came through the site. Our green roof, sorry, I'm going backwards here. Our green roof was full of flowers. This is the roof of the visitor center, you wouldn't believe. And there was so much for the birds. The birds were bouncing through the trees and enjoying themselves with the warm weather. We were really set to go. We were ready. Here's a little Sardinian warbler, and you can see on his throat is yellow. He has been feasting on pollen and some of the flowers, probably the almond trees at the beginning of the spring, and everything looked good to go. And suddenly, overnight, it all changed. First, the borders closed, then the schools closed, and then the cancellations started coming in. And suddenly the whole country was in lockdown. Sadly, I think this is a familiar story to many of you all over the world. So instead of this picture, which is a usual spring picture, or this picture, this is what we had. Empty bird hide, empty site, and no visitors on site. The enormity of the situation hit us, and we rushed to adapt. Most of our staff was sent into furlough or unpaid leave, or paid leave, I should say. So we could call out for so we had to call out for volunteers to come and help us in the ringing program. We didn't know if we would be able to keep the integrity of the research going while we observed the restrictions. How would we keep contact with our staff, volunteers, and friends around the world? And when would we be able to open again and welcome people back? But after years of working to build up a wonderful community around the JBO, it paid off. Amazing volunteers stepped forward to help, and we managed to keep the bird banding going at the RAL bird ringing station all the way through the spring, with the exception of a couple days when it rained. March was still cold and rainy, so the numbers of birds was slow to start. But by the end of the month, we had a huge wave of lesser whitethroats, or sifitochanim for the Hebrew speakers, migrating hawfinches, or patzchanim, and siskins, horpim, were making their way, things very, very lively for the ringers. And there would be only 1 or 2 people on site to handle all of this. In April, we worked with a skeleton crew, and we had to open less nets than usual for the season, but we still had an amazing month with 3,597 birds banded during the season. And as you can see by this little red line that bounces up and down, it was one of the best springs. In fact, it was one of the best months in the history of the JBO of 26 years of ringing. Lesser whitethroats poured through the country in record numbers. And there were days when the trees just seemed to jump from their chips and coils. And here you can see a little lesser white-throat sticking out from his side there. It was one of the best years ever for lesser white-throats in Israel. April 11th was a huge day for flycatchers. 33 of these birds, these black and white birds, were ringed at the station. Now this is an enormous number, and they're really, really a lot of fun. And so when we see one or two, we are really excited. So 33 in one day was quite a amazing catch. By May, we were easing restrictions a little bit, which means we could bring back more volunteers and we could increase our capture efforts. But the colder spring weather meant that the local mulberry trees didn't ripen as early as they usually do. And so numbers of the birds remained a little bit low. Still, by this morning, the last day of May, we have banded 6,371 birds from 62 different species of birds. Remember, this is an 1.5 acre site in the middle of the city, and we're doing extremely well. You can see from these numbers how important this site is to the migrating birds. And I just want to say shout out to the volunteers who did help us through the worst part of the lockdown, running around banding by themselves practically, and to the volunteers who showed up in May when we eased restrictions. A big shout out to all of you and to all of them. The fact that we managed to ring every day and get so many birds is a real testament to their dedication and to the community that we've built up here at the JBO. I'd like to show you now a short video, if I can get out of this, that shows you a few of the birds that we have been seeing. So just bear with me 2 seconds here. I'm going to back up to that screen, if it lets me. Here we go, hang on a second. Stop share, that's what I have to do. Hang on a sec. All right. Okay, and all of this nature is occurring in downtown Jerusalem.
Your video stopped, Alen.
Yep, we're good. So I'm going to share the screen back with you. So all in all, this year we did very good with our birds. Early on, we realized that there was something serious missing at the Bird Observatory. What was missing was the people. We're a community-based organization. The people are the DNA of the JBO. And without people on site, things just felt very quiet and very sad. We realized early on that if people did not come to the JBO, we were going to have to go to them. So we started to broadcast bird banding live on Facebook and Zoom. We brought birds into the living rooms around the world. And this was so popular and successful that it led us to doing online workshops for teachers working at home, online tours of the JBO for special needs classrooms, and even an online coffee and birds discussion group early in the morning. Meanwhile, just as Noam said, we took the opportunity to do some work around the site. So we planted new trees, we put up our new signs that we'd been working on for a while, and we added to the biodiversity of the site. This period has definitely been a challenge. I can't say enough about that. We lost vital income from our visitors and our groups. We'd like to really reach out and thank everybody who made a donation over the last couple of months to help the JBO weather the storm. There's a long way to go. Like most nonprofit organizations here in Israel and around the world, the JBO has been hit hard by the last couple of months, and it's going to take us quite a while to get back on stable financial footing. Your support is very important to us. We hope that you will consider donating to help the JBO continue its vital work of research, education, and conservation here in Jerusalem. It's only through your support that things are going to get back along a path. Like Noam says, we were feeling really hopeful, but then things started to backtrack this weekend, especially here in the Jerusalem area. So now we're not quite sure where we're going, but we move forward nonetheless. And we are happy to say that the visitor center is now open. The shop is open for business, and the ringing program is going to continue. We have received a very generous donation from the supporters of the Ariel Bird Ringing Center to support the bird ringing throughout the summer, and we thank them very much for that. We look forward to further easing of the restrictions as we go into the summer months and welcoming the public and the community back to the JBO this summer. We would like to see sites like this again in the very near future as soon as possible. And if you've never been to the JBO, we look forward to seeing you one day in the very near future. If you are a regular visitor, you live here in Israel, come back soon. Stay well, everybody, and thank you. And Jonathan, am I handing it back to you?
I'll come in. Hi, Alen. I'm gonna bring in our expert panel. So I'm gonna bring Noam, who's coming back. I won't bring Noam back because he brought himself back. Hello, Noam. And I'm gonna bring Jonathan back as well. And then the three of you can show off who is the cleverest, like maybe fastest finger first, or we can do something a little bit more dignified. So I guess thank you very much to everyone who's been here with us today. Hope you have enjoyed the webinar. As Alen, Noam, and Jonathan have been saying, our work has been really severely impacted by COVID-19, by the coronavirus. And there's times like this where we rely on you, our friends and supporters and like-minded people who love Israeli nature just as we do to help us get through this. So please, if you are able to donate, please donate as generously as you can. And we hope to continue, to continue our work as we have been successfully and quickly as possible. So the questions. Okay, first of all, I think the most important question is, Noam and Alen, how do we actually get to your birds observatories? Noam, you can go first.
Again, how do I get there?
How do you get to the Eilat International Bird Research Center in Eilat?
Not how you personally get there, but where it is.
Okay. It is just on the edge of Eilat city. It's a 15 minutes walk or 5 minutes by car, and hopefully soon 5 minutes with a bus. It's really easy. There are good roads connecting us, and we are open all day long, all night long, 24/7. Entrance is free, so everybody is very, very welcome.
And Alen, same to you. Well,
the Jerusalem Bird Observatory is right next to the Knesset in downtown Jerusalem. If you look for the Knesset, you can't miss us. And also we're open, the bird hide is open 24/7 all through the year, and you can come and enjoy whenever you want. Also, the bird hide is for free. We only charge for specific activities. So come on down, come and visit. If you come in from the airport, it's easy to come to Jerusalem and then head down to Eilat. So you can make a nice circle of it and get two birds in one stone. If I could jump in, there's a question about the stream at the JBO wasn't working today. Yes, that is true. We have a clog in the pipe of the pump that runs the stream that feeds the pool of the pond, and it should be taken care of tomorrow. So if you had come to do some photography and you didn't see the stream flow in, please come back a little later in the week, and we promise to have it running for you. Lawrence?
We have Lawrence.
Lawrence is gone, but I've seen some of the questions, so I can already answer them.
Okay.
People asked me about dangers to stopover sites in Southern Arava in Eilat. So there are many, many dangers, and they are piling every day because Eilat is becoming a bigger city. It's supposed to double itself in the next 10 years with the inhabitants, and infrastructure follows. In the last 3 years, I was trying to think what we have done. We fought wind turbines with great success from the community. It all ended with votes in 3 kibbutzim. The members voted no for a lot of income, a lot of money, just for the sake of the birds. Closure of the salt pans. The salt factory is supposed to be closed in a few years because they want to build a neighborhood on some of its grounds. So we are now running a project with the Nature and Parks Authority to run these salt ponds ourselves for the sake of the birds. Just yesterday, we had a really important meeting about this. Drainage canals are terrible for the desert. They're great to protect infrastructure, but they take the floods from the vegetation, from where the water is supposed to pass, straight and fast into the sea without the impact that it brings. The flood brings soil, seeds, and water. This is what the desert needs. But now that everything goes into drainage canals, doesn't stop at the desert anymore. So just upstreams, you get good stopover sites for migrants or habitats for birds. Some fields that are good for birds are turning solar. Solar energy is cheaper, brings more money, no water needed and no manpower needed. These are the main problems of our region's farming. So solar panels make more sense than growing weeds for livestock and for birds. And also the beach, we have lost the beach. It's now all touristic or industrial. This is why we build with the Navy purchase in the sea, breeding platforms in the sea because the beach is gone. There is a lot going on. Every day new plants arrive that we have to stop, and some places we can make better. We work a lot with the community about their gardens, making them more hospitable for birds. We have an exemplary garden at the bird sanctuary explaining how to do that. I was also asked about house crows. How do we fight house crows? So it's a pretty cool thing. We do a survey all over town. I can try and show you. I don't know if you see it, but this is the map of Eilat with all the house crows, hard to see, nests. And all this color you see there, it's about 500 crows nests in town. What we do is take a giant selfie stick connected to a pump, and we spray oil on the eggs. So the adults aren't harmed, but their eggs are not gonna hatch. So they sit on eggs that are not gonna hatch. This is our way to control their population. And at the same time, we are answering calls from the public. People are getting hit by crows, lots of problems, and we are trying to solve people's problems. If there is a chick that fell on the ground, or a mirror, or food source that we have to make sure that doesn't make any problem. Fighting the house crow is important, not only for people, but for migratory birds. Just yesterday, a photographer documented the house crows stealing nests and harassing birds. Birds of prey are having a hard time landing to drink, etc. And about the ticks that go to Sweden. So in the past, we studied viruses, pathogens that fly inside the blood of migratory birds. Late Professor Ilan Paterna found out that 30% of them carry West Nile virus and another 30% malaria. So we know pretty much a lot about what birds carry in the blood, migrating between continents, but what ticks carry, we don't know. There is some research about what types of, what species of ticks migrate on top of birds, but nobody really researched well what pathogens, what viruses are in their blood, what they are carriers for. So this is why this research is important. Maybe it's stopping the next pandemic, nobody knows.
I will take a question. Linda Segal asked us, do you think that less traffic in Israel and worldwide because of COVID has increased the bird population? So the answer is no, it has not increased bird populations. Because the traffic stopped and air traffic and there was suddenly a lot less noise all around us, then people started noticing birds. More so than ever before. Me and my colleagues that we work with birds on a daily basis, we didn't see any trends of, all these things thrown around that the humans are in quarantine and the animals are having a party. All this stuff are nice analogies. The fact is that birds and wildlife were more free to roam into urban areas or close to urban areas, especially in Israel, where nature and urban nature is a big thing. But such a crisis does not have any effect on actual populations of birds, sadly. And in the beginning of the crisis, we were all hoping that humanity will learn something from this crisis and we will become more humble and respect nature more. We still have some optimism and hopes towards that, but the way it seems, humanity bounces back even stronger. And I really hope that people take this in mind and respect nature a little more when things go back to normal.
Jonathan, while you're on the line, you hear me?
Yes.
I see you answered the question about why Kacal JNF cut off the funding for the free water, but you said it was affected, but Kacal is a real estate development company that holds, leases, and develops about 12% of the land of Israel, finishes a year with billion shekel surplus in the bank. In what sense was it affected financially by this crisis that would cause it to cut off water supply?
I think Noam is the person to answer this. JNF are partners in the Eilat Bird Sanctuary. And Noam, you can answer, you know this better than we do.
Okay, so JNF has been very kind to us for many years and are still great. They are one of the 6 partners of the Bird Sanctuary. They are supporting us with a lot of funds, but every year they did more than just supporting with what they had to. They pay their participation fee, which is not small, but they also help with water, new plants, and it's not true that their financial situation is good. I can see them firing lots of people. They're not in good situation.
Are you referring to Kacal? Are you referring to Kacal in Israel, Noam?
Yes, Kacal in Israel, and we are hoping for their recovery because they are good friends of the Bird Sanctuary of Eilat.
Interesting.
Yeah. They also cut research funds from the research and development organizations. They had to cut. They are also struggling, but we are the ones to protect nature.
Thank you.
There was a quick question there about when the best time to come to Israel to see birds is. And I think there's no bad time, but March and April are definitely key times, the end of March, early April. So we look forward to seeing everybody next year. Eilat Bird Festival is going to get going again, I hope. And the Champions of the Flyway, we're looking forward to them happening next year. And we hope to see you all here in Israel.
Israel is a country of migration. We use the terms spring migration and fall migration, but these are wrong terms. Migration goes around for 10 months of the year. And here comes the question from Martha Stern. So yes, fall migration is a very, very big deal in Israel. Almost as impressive as spring migration. The best time to experience migration is early March to mid-May in the spring, and from September well into November in the fall. But after that, the winter seasons are fantastic for wintering birds. Israel is an amazing wintering area for huge populations from the north. And yeah, the Chula Valley in northern Israel are amazing throughout the winter. So basically, barring, June and July, where are slightly quieter periods, fall migration kicks off already in August. So there isn't really a quiet period when it comes to bird migration in Israel. And I think that first I'd like to thank Yuval Dax for his help with the videos. Yuval was put under pressure to put this together pretty quickly, and he did a great job as usual. We will upload the links to both videos here in the chat box, and also we will send them. They will be available in other channels. Guys, is there anything else we'd like to say?
Yeah, I will say that we'll be back in 2 weeks' time, everyone, with a webinar just focused on the Swiss at the Kacal with the marvelous Amir Balaban, who is one of the co-founders of the Jerusalem Bird Observatory. And we'll be back in 4 weeks' time with Noam, who will be flying solo, who will be talking, I believe, about how birds can create peace across borders. We'll definitely be talking more about birds. We'll be continuing into July. Just need to work out a couple of final things, but we'll be remaining in touch with you. I will scoop Jonathan by saying in about 2 weeks' time, we'll be having our first ever birding e-newsletter in English. And if you'd like to subscribe to that, you can do so at our website, which is www.natureisrael.org. And you can see when you subscribe to our newsletter, you can choose to get our general English newsletter with all our amazing news. Or if you want to also, or just want to hear about birding news, you can just subscribe to that. And the magic of MailChimp will make sure you get just what you want. Obviously, we don't ever sell your email addresses and contact details. It's confidential. yeah, that's my housekeeping notes.
Thank you. Noam, Alen, anything else? Any final words before we just close up and I thank everybody?
Just thanks everybody for joining us. And you can find us on Facebook. Just type in Nili and David Jerusalem Bird Observatory. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and we'd love to hear from you. Any questions, just send them on. Noam?
Yes, I would also like to
I will thank you very much, Avi, who just made a very generous pledge in the chat, and thank you everyone who's donated during this webinar. Like my emails have been popping up throughout with really generous donations from so many people, and we're just really honored and touched that you guys are supporting our work. Really, thank you.
So I would also like to thank all of you for listening to us and all the people who are helping us supporting the IBRC, the Eilat Bird Sanctuary for so many years. So thank you from all our hearts, and I hope I see you soon again.
Thank you all of you, our panelists, our expert birders, and Lawrence, our expert Zoominar master, and everybody behind us here in SPNI. I really want to give an important shout out to, again, our friends in the States and in Canada. In the States, in Nature Israel, our board and hard workers, Robin and Linda in New York, and in Toronto, CSPNI, and our hard workers there, Michael and Avi, who will hopefully be reaching out. CSPNI and Nature Israel in the States are tax exempt, is where you can make tax exempt donations to SPNI on our website. We also have volunteer organizations in the UK and in France, hardworking volunteers there. So thank you all very, very much for your support. I just want to say, guys, birding is just so damn fascinating. It's, I mean, the community aspect, the educational aspect, and the science, the way birds are harbingers of everything. I came to SPNI 6 years ago from a nature conservation, from an environmental background, but not really nature conservation. And that's what birding is about too. I mean, Noam talked about turning garbage from a mitrad to a mashab, from a problem to a resource. We're consulting on that and making a great birding center, which helps the birds and is a great community and educational place. And you mentioned biological pest control down there in the fields, and we do that in other habitats and with other kinds of biological pest control, bats and barn owls, and it's amazing. Alen just mentioned casually the green roof, fascinating. The JPO pioneered this kind of urban nature birding site in Israel and as a community center, and that green roof is incredible. It's if you have a roof, it should either be green or it should have solar panels on it. Am I right? I mean, especially
Absolutely.
if you have an institution and a big roof and a factory or a school or something. I mean, it's really, guys, really great stuff. Learned so much. Thank you guys very, very much. And we'll see you back in this format in a couple of weeks. Thanks very much, Lawrence, and good night to everybody from Tel Aviv.
Good night, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Peace.
Right.